welcome back to another video. So this video I wanted to do something a little bit different. There's been this big conversation lately about what exactly is vintage and what is the future of vintage going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years. Now, with the onslaught of fast fashion starting in the mid-90s and where we are now today, a lot of vintage lovers, vintage resellers, vintage collectors are having to confront that some things, even though they're fast fashion, are being labeled as vintage. Now, in my shop and my business, I define vintage as anything 25 years and older. I look at it as there's a generation in between it. Some sellers do 20 years. I have seen some other sellers using 10 years. There are a lot of different sellers that abide by different things, but 25 is where I normally hit the mark. But if it's something I really love and it's 20 years, then that's what it is. So if we go based on my definition of 25 years, that means anything from the year 2000 and beforehand is considered vintage. If we flash forward and use 20 years, anything from 2005 and before is considered vintage. So with that definition, the pieces that I'm going to be showing you today are not vintage by those two definitions. But I wanted to show them because I was feeling a little bit of nostalgia for what I wore in late high school and early college. Now, I graduated high school in 2007, graduated college in 2011, and these pieces I don't consider vintage. Some sellers do, but just for the purpose of this video, they're not. But I wanted to show what the future of vintage could look like, looking at clothing that I purchased and I wore in the early 2000s, 2006 to 2011 or 2012. And there were two distinct styles that I personally subscribed to. One was the Indie Sleaze style, and I have to preface this wasn't a term that I was aware of at that time. I just dressed because I loved the fashion blogs of Tumblr. I'm going to put some examples of ones that I followed religiously. I learned about the brand and company Modcloth through some of these bloggers, and I got a lot of style inspiration from it. Now, the cool part is these style blogs, they weren't telling you wear exactly what I'm wearing. They talked about how they chose their outfit, that they love this certain piece, they love this piece, they start putting them together, and they came up with some really interesting, cool concepts for outfits that I still like to refer to today, and some of these blogs still exist, although they're a little bit different than they were when I started looking at them in the early 2000s. Now, the second category, and one that I was obsessed with, was rockabilly. Not as popular now, especially in the region I'm in, but in the earlier 2000s, rockabilly hit the Midwest, and it was more of again, underground. So those of us who wore it definitely stuck out. Now, rockabilly, I wore a lot of swing dresses with polka dot patterns. I would always put a little flower in my hair, red lipstick, and I'll put up some of my inspirations here. I remember going to the Betty Page clothing store in the Mall of America and purchasing two dresses, very rockabilly style. And I remember seeing one of the pinup models that I idolized working at that store, and I was completely starstruck. I didn't even say anything. I was shy and like, ugh. But I'm not going to be focusing too much on the rockabilly side of it. I wanted to focus more on the Indie Sleaze, kind of the Modcloth era. If you want to see more of the rockabilly pieces that I wore, let me know down below, because those probably I have more of at this point. But the Indie Sleaze era, I did a blog post on it, very brief blog post, and to me it was always hard to, it's even still hard to define because these are pieces, again, I was in the Tumblr era, a lot of 70s influence, fur coats that you got from secondhand shops, vintage, new, the hair, flat ironing your hair, doing a little swoopy bang. That was really what was in. And from my hairstyles to my makeup to things I was wearing, it definitely was an interesting era and one that I still look back on with a lot of nostalgia. Now, one of my biggest influences in college, Tumblr and those style blogs, but I remember very vividly I had some friends at another neighboring college that met a foreign exchange student. And yes, they called them foreign exchange students, even though this woman was from the UK. And she came over with nothing and bought her entire wardrobe from secondhand and vintage or thrift shops from around our city. And I remember looking at her and her style and thinking, oh my gosh, she is so cool. She just picks and chooses, buys what she loves, wears what she loves, piece things all together. And it was almost as if she gave us permission to do the same thing. Because again, in this area of the country, I'm in North Dakota, having your own sense of personal style can be very difficult. We live in a very North Face, white t-shirt, beige sweatpants kind of environment. So anything that made you stick out made people feel very uncomfortable. But with her, I thought, cool, she's doing it and I think she's the coolest thing ever. I'm going to start wearing the pieces that I want to as well. Now, as I said, I am going to be highlighting trio of clothes that I got from Modcloth. Now, I got these from Modcloth earlier when they first started, before they were bought out by Walmart. They had home decor, clothing, prints. I tell you, this website was my dream in college. I worked several jobs, paying my way through college, and if I could scrounge up a little bit of extra money, that is a site where my money would go to. Now, over the years in college, I'd purchase a little cupcake, timer, little tchotchkes, but the clothing is what really stood out. And a couple of these pieces were ones that I saw in some of these style blogs. Now, a little bit of the story of behind some of them, I purchased them all for a very specific reason. And the first one I'm going to show is one of my all-time favorites. It doesn't fit me anymore, but I wanted this dress so badly, and I saved up all my money just to be able to do it. Now, this first one is from, again, Modcloth, and it's this beautiful, like, peachy, soft ballet pink, glorious strapless dress with these 3D leaves in this little chiffon, and then the leaves are just dripping down the dress. Now, I purchased this dress in, I believe it was, 2011, and I bought it with the sole purpose of wearing it to my college graduation. Now, I was wearing my graduation gown at the time, so no one really could see the dress, but I knew it was there. Now, this dress was something I was definitely proud of, and I actually only ever wore it that one time for my graduation because I didn't want anything happening to it. But just look at those gorgeous details. I mean, oh, I still absolutely love this dress. I really should just hang it up and put it on display. But when looking at a dress like this, the fabric is not the same as you would find in vintage clothing. Different practices of making these, because this is, I believe, some polyester, rayon. I'll look more at the garment tag, but this fabric is very delicate and snags easily. And as you can see, you might not be able to see it actually, but in each of these petals, it's this clear thread, almost like a fish line type thread that is coming out a little bit. So had I worn this more, it would not still look the way it does. So in order to make sure this lasts for as long as I can, I have to keep very good care of it. But this is a dress that I imagine in 20 plus years, I guess, really got this in 2011. Yeah, another 10 years when it becomes vintage. I'm hoping the beauty will just be as it is. This is one that I saw in one of the style blogs that I religiously read, and I saw the blogger wear this dress and style it with a cardigan and some cool tights, and I was hooked, and I definitely made it my own. I don't have any pictures of me wearing it because, again, at that time I had one of those little keyboard BlackBerry type phones, didn't take very good pictures, didn't really do much with social media at the time other than Tumblr, but I didn't post pictures of myself on that. So I don't have any cool photos of me wearing it, and I don't fit it anymore. C'est la vie. But this has to be one of my favorites and one that I'm never going to let go of, and hopefully it'll get its time to shine again in the future. Now this dress I was beyond obsessed with, and this again is another one from Modcloth that I had seen on a blogger at that time. And at that point in my life, I absolutely loved novelty print everything. So I have a lot of dresses that have really cool novelty prints. I have one that has little cars, flowers, leopard print. I mean, you name it, I probably had that print. Now this one, it's made of a lot sturdier of a polyester material, but it's very thin and it's unlined. So if I remember correctly, I think I had to wear shorts under this one. Otherwise you would be able to see a little too much. But yeah, another Modcloth buy, and I wore this one a fair amount. I paired it with a little cardigan and some tights. I used to always wear these nude seamed stockings and tights with all of my dresses. But I absolutely adore this one. And again, the material and how thin it is, if I wore it a lot, it would not look this pristine. But that was a period in time where I was a college student working dishwashing jobs, little jobs here and there, and I couldn't afford to buy a crap ton of clothing, because these dresses at the time, if I remember correctly, I think when I bought these in 2009 to 2011, these were $60, $70, up to $80 plus shipping, which I don't know if inflation has really affected that price much right now. If it has, I'll put it up. But these were investment pieces to me, so I wanted to make sure I kept them in impeccable condition. I had a tiny little rack of clothing in my apartment, and that was all. Like, this is all I wore. I should get back into wearing dresses again, but these were investment pieces. They weren't $10, $12 dresses, and I didn't buy them in bulk, which is why I still have them today, because when I bought them, it was intentional and they meant something. Now, I would wear this to classes. I would wear this out and about to my retail job. At the time, I was working at a boutique, a little small business boutique, and it was just perfect. And I love this one so much. I just keep staring at it. It has great twirl. I don't know if I can. Well, you can't really see a whole lot there, but trust me. Ooh, now this dress was something special. Now this was another Modcloth, and again, I saw it on one of the style blogs and absolutely loved it. And I paired this vintage necklace with it because this is how I would style it. I would throw on some red lipstick. I would wear my nude seamed stockings, as well as even some black leggings on top of it. Now I know I have a photo in this dress at some point because I wore it beyond when I bought it, and I'm pretty sure I bought this one in either 2009 or 2010. Now with Modcloth, for any of you who aren't familiar with it, they had their house brands, but they also had brands from different vendors. And this was from a different vendor. I believe it was from Rocksteady, and it's a very nice, thick knit material. It's very stretchy. Now, again, I don't think I would fit into it today because as you can see, the bust is very small. This was one of the things I remember always having an issue with, is my chest would barely fit in that. But I mean, how absolutely gorgeous is it? And the color and everything. And at that time, I was experimenting a lot with my hair color. Now this would have looked really great with my current red hair. I may have had red hair at that point, but I'd bleached half of my head and was doing just a lot of funky things with my hair. So I don't even know what my hair looked like at that time, but there was a period after that, after I'd already graduated college and I started doing more red things with my hair, that I wore this dress. It's been a very long time. I'm not going to model it. I'm not going to do that to myself. It might be a little depressing. But this has to be one of my favorite ones. And I wore this a fair amount. And as you can see, it's a little on the short side, so I had to wear shorts under it. But I absolutely adored this dress, and I still do. One day I'll wear it again. But I think this is a perfect example of a dress that in 20, 30, 40 years, it'll be very indicative of this period in style history because of the material. And again, this wasn't a Modcloth house brand. It was a different one, but one that I am still familiar with to this day. I think, did I already say Rocksteady? It was Rocksteady. I don't know if they still exist today, but this material is very, very high quality. I'm pretty sure this dress was over $80 when I bought it. I remember specifically saving up for this one, but oh goodness, I just have to keep staring at it. I almost don't even want to take it off of my mannequin. I might just keep it on here for a while. Ah, I love it. But when I talk about Indie Sleaze, a lot of those outfits that I wore, I was looking through my closet, and I store a lot of these pieces in kind of a storage closet tucked away from all the elements. And those ones were definitely used and abused. Now, those pieces at that time I would get from secondhand stores, thrift stores. That was when Forever 21 started to really gather a lot of momentum, and I was really hard on them, and they don't look very good right now, but I'll put some pictures of the Indie Sleaze in. Now, part of Indie Sleaze with this is a reason why I added that necklace with it. Indie Sleaze was a combination of vintage, secondhand, maybe you would buy a new accessory or new scarf, or your tights were usually new. It was an amalgamation of a lot of those, but it had very 70s rocker vibes. So when I said I would wear a lot of black tights and wacky colored tights or fishnets or anything like that was very quintessential in Indie Sleaze. It wasn't coiffed and polished. Like, my hair wouldn't be all set and pristine and perfect. It would probably have been, again, I had half a bleached head of hair, teased, a little messy. My makeup, I would smudge black eyeliner under my eyes. So it wasn't how it was when I ended up really leaning towards rockabilly after I graduated college. There, I had, again, like I said, in the flower, it was a little bit more polished, a little bit more pristine, but Indie Sleaze was just that. It was very felt very dirty sometimes. And if I can find some of the photos of me, again, you see like glistening, headband, just, off the shoulder shirt. A lot of those pieces I do still have, but again, they were not made to last a long time. And that is going to be kind of the gap or the hole in a lot of our clothing nowadays, is that it's, if we wear it and actually wear it a lot, it's not going to survive. Whereas vintage pieces, when you're thinking pieces made in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, those pieces were made to last. And you can still find some brands, like I mentioned, the Rocksteady dress behind me, that are vintage inspired. And there are a lot of brands that are really, really good at, yes, we don't have access to some of the materials that they had in some pieces in earlier decades, but they're really good, strong, well-made quality pieces. But this is where I really wanted to show some of these off. In 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of the quintessential styled pieces that we would wear aren't going to exist anymore. We'll get them maybe through photos, but at that time, you maybe had your Kodak camera or a Polaroid or something like that, where it wasn't as easily accessible to document your clothing. Now this top is one that it's a little bit earlier than the other two. It feels weird saying earlier, but I actually wore this one in high school. So I'm pretty sure I purchased this maybe around 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. And this is from the brand Wet Seal. Now I've talked about this in previous videos. Wet Seal was a fast fashion brand, but they weren't how we thought of fast fashion necessarily today. Earlier when they opened, and especially with this piece, these actually weren't made horribly. I still have a lot of Wet Seal pieces that I wear today, like cardigans, all of that. Obviously, they're not as pristine as they were when I bought them, but they were made decently well. Now, this top was made in polyester and spandex. So as you can tell, it can survive probably an apocalypse. Now, it's a little dingy on the top because, again, I wore this all the time, and I would pair this with a knit poncho. Actually, I'm going to grab one of my modern sweaters and show you and give you a little bit more of an idea of how it would have looked. Now, when I wore this in high school, I definitely loved the boho 70s vibes. I had knit ponchos, knit cardigans, so I would have worn something very similar to this and some jeans underneath. Also, a la one of my favorite Britney Spears outfits, I would put a long-sleeved white top underneath if I wanted something a little bit more covered up. But this piece, again, as all clothing should, you should get more than one use out of it. Unless, like my graduation dress, it was for a very special occasion and you want to save it. But this piece I still ended up wearing into college and then eventually just forgot about it as my style and tastes changed. So when I was more in the Indie Sleaze era, heading into college, I wouldn't have worn this knit cardigan. I would have sleazed it up a little bit more. Now, to Indie Sleaze it up, I would have styled it very similar to this. Now, this is one of my late 1960s faux fur animal print coat. Add on this necklace from the 70s. And this would have been something I would have worn going out with my friends. Probably even would have worn it going to work. But one thing I can't get on my mannequin that I want to show you is what I would have done with the bottoms. Now, these ones have definitely been used and abused, but they are these black multi-button on both sides mini shorts, and these I would have worn over a pair of black tights with the seam going down the back. Now, I have a package of those tights that I had never opened somewhere, and part of me is thinking I brought it to the shop, but you get the gist. I'll post a photo of what I'm talking about. But I would have worn those black legging or black tights with this pair of shorts and this outfit, and probably some black fringe Minnetonka moccasins, ballet flats. I, around that time, had gotten back from a study abroad trip in France, and I bought these really beautiful little ballet flats. And I had gone out one night. You could drink over there. I was 19, and you can legally drink at 18. So I was out on the town a decent amount, and I had these amazing gunmetal metallic-y silver ballet flats with black crisscross on the top. I don't know if I still have the photos, but I would have probably worn those with this outfit as well. When I came home late one night, my host family ended up locking me out of the house. I had another student from my local college who was staying there with me, but she partied way harder than I did and came back way later. So my host family got sick of it. They locked us out. So I ended up having to kind of pound on their door, wake them up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they let me in. So they told me I had to be very quiet because they were trying to sleep. Their daughter had to go to school the next day, and they had one bathroom, and it was right by their room. And I was trying to be so quiet and tiptoeing, but then realized that somewhere along the line of walking home that night, I had stepped in dog poop. And it was a lot of it. And I totally forgot about this story until now, but I ended up tracking it through their entire house. And my shoe was covered, but I loved these shoes so much. So as silently as I could, and trying to hold in my gagging because it smelled horrific. You have pets, especially dogs, you know. And I was wiping up their floors, and I tracked it everywhere. But then I desperately was trying to clean off these shoes. Now, the ballet flats were exactly like how they are ballet flats. They weren't structured. They didn't have a very thick sole. So I ran them under the sink and was washing them out in the sink, and opened up the window to our room, which they didn't have screens. Just open up and you're in the wide, wide world. And I put them out on the ledge to dry and then kept wearing them. I actually recently found them going through my mom's garage where some of my old boxes were, and I don't know if I ended up getting rid of them because they were mangy, they were gross, but they were fabulous. Anyways, that was very much my indie sleaze style at the time, and pieces that I bought even when I was overseas and bought them at a market. I had these amazing white faux leather pointed boots. Again, if I can find photos, I will show you, but my camera I had at the time was this little digital camera. I still have it, but when we were staying at a hostel in Paris, me and a friend ended up taking the metro to this little club, and we had snuck champagne into water bottles on the metro, which please don't, it's a dumb idea. And I ended up dropping my camera at some point and had to download all of what was on my memory card onto the trip leader's computer. Because at that time, I just had my little camera card, my memory card, and they were keeping my photos safe until they got back to the States. But when I headed back to the States, they ended up going to Poland to visit family. And again, somewhere along the way, something happened to their computer and it erased everything they had on it. So I had photos from that night. I had photos from Père Lachaise where I met this amazing, sweet little old man who for 4 hours walked me through the entire cemetery, finding graves of Sarah Bernhardt and Oscar Wilde and all of these amazing places. And those photos are all lost to time. So if I can find any, I'll post them. It still hurts to this day. But anywho, that's kind of how this style evolved for me. And even looking at this outfit now, I would totally wear it today. All right, well, that is it for now. I love going through my old clothes. You know, some people get memories through pictures. I get memories through clothing, and this was a lot of fun to remember things that I'd done. And without photos, this is what I have left. And it's been, I've been loving doing this and finding these pieces after years of them just being in storage. It brings back some good memories, but I really hope you like this video. And I know for me, it constantly is reminding me of when I purchase clothing now, today in 2025. I still use the same rule of thumb. It needs to be intentional. It needs to be something that if I'm not going to wear it every single day, then it has to be something special enough to me to where I'm going to save it and give it longevity for the rest of my life, and that someone else is going to be able to enjoy at some point in time. And that's really how I look at a lot of my clothes. I don't buy a lot of clothes, even though you would think the opposite, since I own a vintage shop that primarily specializes in clothes. It takes a lot for me to keep things for myself, but any new clothing I buy now, it's intentional. It has to be something that is going to last, and not just because it's cheap or I just feel like buying 10 things all at the same time. But if you like this video, definitely let me know. Do you remember Modcloth early back in the days? Were you a Tumblr girl? Did you have a style blog? I didn't have a style blog. I just reposted a lot of things. Inspiration. I never did any of the style blog stuff. I didn't have the confidence at that time. But it was really cool. And I always look fondly on it and look back at some of those old posts, and it just gives me that hit of nostalgia that I hope doesn't get lost with the newer and upcoming generations. Hopefully, all of you watching will be able to create memories through clothing as well. But if you like this video, let me know, and maybe I'll go through all of the clothing from my rockabilly era, and those are pieces that I do have pictures of me wearing them. But welcome to what vintage is going to look like in the next 10, 20, 30 plus years. And it's going to look very different if you don't take care of your clothing. It's a really good reminder, very good reminder, and one that I'm really happy I was able to share with you all today. So thank you so much again for watching. Let me know what you bought in that period. Were you in the Indie Sleaze era? What did you wear? What did you like? What brands were you buying that I don't remember? Did you thrift? Where did you get your pieces from? I am really curious to know. It always holds a special place in my heart, and I hope it does to you too. So until I see you all again, bye.